Hello, my name is Kerry Brown and I'm the Director of the Lau China Institute and the Professor of Chinese Studies at King's College London. I'm really happy that I'm able to talk to you about the exciting course that we do here. We are one of the largest and one of the most diverse centres, not only in the UK, but in Europe and possibly in the world, dealing with the study of contemporary China. What is it about China, just as an introduction, that is important? Well, firstly, because it's at the moment the world's second biggest economy, and it's most likely that sometime in the next decade it's going to be the world's biggest, so that's unprecedented. Secondly, it is that China is a relatively new issue. If we think in the 1980s and 1990s, so relatively recently, there wasn't really much that was studied and known about China, particularly outside the country. But now China seeps into every part of our lives, from the environment to the economy, and of course, with the numbers of Chinese students in our environment, in our universities, it is a physical part of our culture and life. And as we've just seen in the huge Chinese New Year celebrations, the Lunar New Year celebrations in London and throughout the world, China is now truly, in terms of its culture, in terms of its economy, in terms of its geopolitical impact, a global issue. So that's why we really want to encourage the study more deeply of aspects of China. It is a geography, of course, but it's more than that. It represents a very different kind of political philosophy. It represents a different cultural outlook. It does represent a different set of values and ideas. And that is one of the things that you'll be able to study when you come here. What I'll be talking about in the next few minutes is the kind of course that we run here, why it's useful, how it's run, and what kind of things might come from it for your future careers. So this is really why we hope that if you consider studying one of the most important issues in the world at the moment, then you really think about studying it here with us at King's College London. The Lau China Institute is, as I've just said, one of the largest institutes in the world. We were established almost a decade ago, and we have at the moment a number of staff dealing with different aspects of China. We do three things principally. One is education. So we have each year about 35 to 40 postgraduate students, but we also have 30 PhD students. That is a large community. So when you come here, you'll be part of that community. You will not be studying in isolation. Secondly, we are also a centre for research. We have colleagues who deal, for instance, with the Chinese economy and the political economy, with the issue of Chinese investment in the rest of the world, one of the most hottest issues in the last 15 to 20 years. We deal, of course, with Chinese politics, with modern history. We deal with the Belt and the Road concept and Chinese geopolitics. But we're also very, very different because we look at genuinely multidisciplinary issues and interdisciplinary issues. We deal, for instance, with the Chinese environment, and not just political or social issues of the Chinese environment, but the science of the Chinese environment. We have a senior lecturer, Dr. Ben Barrett, who deals with that and is from the School of Analytics and Environment, and who was partly works with us. We also work in partnership, for instance, with organizations like China Dialogue, a platform in Chinese and English that talks about the Chinese environmental issues. This interdisciplinarity is really key because a lot of other courses will look, for instance, at predominantly social science. They may look at political science. They will look at a maybe more narrow range of issues, but we wish to really cover the whole discipline area, from the social sciences to history, to economics, to culture, and then into scientific issues. So this is, I think, really distinctive, and there isn't really an institution like this, certainly in the UK and possibly through the rest of Europe or the world. We also have a global network of relationships for the third area that we work on, which is our outreach. We are at the centre of London, a political, finance, cultural centre and a global centre. King's College itself has students from over 150 countries. When you come here, therefore, you will be part of that community. We work with organisations like the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, like Chatham House, the think tank, one of the world's most respected international relations institutions. We work with, as I just said, China Dialogue, a platform which is highly respected, which deals with Chinese environmental issues. We also work with entities like Transparency International. We have done work with the Young China Watchers and with other organizations that work with business in and around China. And of course, we have a set of relationships within China, in, for instance, places like the Shanghai Institute of Social Sciences or the Shanghai Institute of International Relations. All of these issues, all of these places are really important to us in working with us and in supplying partnership opportunities. We therefore study China with China. It's not just about passively looking at China, it's about engaging with Chinese partners. This is, I think, a really core thing that we can offer here. There are also partnerships that we have in Europe, the United States, and in Australia. Across the world, therefore, we are deeply connected. And in the Institute, we also are partly the co-editors of the Journal of Current Chinese Affairs with the German Institute of Global Affairs in Hamburg. So we have an extraordinary mixture of research partners, dissemination partners, and also commercial partners, those that are interested in the insights from this institute in shaping their policy and their understanding of contemporary China. In that sense, we are, again, one of the most active across the world. When you come here, what will you learn? Well, I think that we are unique in offering a real balance between theory and also empirical and practical reality. We really want to understand China as it is, not, for instance, as some theories may predetermine it. China offers all sorts of issues, for instance, for modernization theory, the question of why it is that despite rapid economic change over the last 30, 40 years, China has politically not changed as dramatically, or questions about whether you really can talk about universal values when a fifth of humanity's government believes that their values are significantly different, and they believe that because of the historic basis of those values and the fact that they come before, way before maybe European Enlightenment values. These are not easy issues. What we really offer here, therefore, is an ability to stand back from these issues and to take different theoretical perspectives, to be multi-perspective in many ways, but also to really kind of not accept easy answers, because it's clear that there aren't any easy answers to this issue. We are therefore really able to offer a kind of neutral space where people can come and give different perspectives from their very, very different environments. The current students, we have students not only from China, but also from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, from Australia, from Europe, and from the United States, and from Africa and Latin America. This gives us a real ability to stand around this huge issue and from our different perspectives learn and understand from each other. Of course, we're very interested in contemporary China, but that's informed by its history and by where it's come from. And so we locate a lot of the work that we do in things that have happened before. And academics, my colleagues here, like Jan Norwich, Charlotte Goodburn, and Constantis Simonis, have done detailed work, comparatively, for instance, between India and China, or on the Communist Youth League, or on Chinese patterns of investment over the last 20 to 30 years outside of China. We are really able to offer this historic perspective and a deep perspective which draws on multiple field research and engagement with the reality of contemporary China. That, I think, again, is a great strength of the course that we offer. But we also really understand the way in which China relates to the world around it, the ways in which it relates, for instance, to the United States or to Europe or to its region through the Belt and Road. We undertake projects, for instance, in Greece and Eastern Europe on what the Belt and the Road actually means in these environments. This, I think, is extremely important. So when you come here, you will be able to talk, deal, and maybe be involved in these kinds of research projects. This, I think, is a really, really unique attribute. And it means that we have a completeness and a perspective and a neutrality. That means that you're really able to balance theoretical and intellectual interests with the dynamics of China as it goes through this historic and important change. Where do people go when they finally finish with their postgraduate qualification here? Well, we believe that we prepare students and have successfully prepared students for a very flexible group of different kinds of professions. In the past, we've had people go into finance successfully. We've had people go into corporate world. We've had people go into media, into journalism, and into government. This is really, really important. We don't expect students that come here to be able to speak Chinese fluently or to have any knowledge of China and Chinese before they come here. We do expect them to have an interest. And it means that when they finish here, no matter where they started from, they have a perspective which has been really, really useful for employers. China literacy is something that the government in the UK and in Europe and in other places have talked about for a long time. The basic fact is that over the last 20 years, from a very, very low base, since China entered the World Trade Organization in 2001, its importance as an economic actor and the way in which this has impacted on global geopolitics means that to understand something about China is a basic requirement for many, many professions. You may well go into a fairly niche area, like, for instance, intellectual property law, but you're going to have to understand about China's perspective on this. And if you're wanting to deal, for instance, with governance, it's likely, even if you go into local government in, for instance, Europe or in the UK, you will need to have some perspective on China and what it means. To not deal with China is a strategic choice, although it's likely in the future that more and more will think that they do need to deal with China, and they will have to decide what areas they want to deal with China on and where they will need to be more selective. We believe in this course, we give people the information and knowledge that in their future careers they will be able to use to make those decisions wisely and with balance and without political partiality. And I think that means that we offer employers, for those who have our students afterwards, people who really do have a knowledge base, an ability to interpret knowledge about China and to take a theoretical, a philosophical and a practical position. And this balance is really important. Not too much theory, not too much obsession on particular events and practices, and certainly not a strong commitment to an ideological or another kind of position, which means that you are then unable to actually look at evidence before you and interpret it in a fresh way. We do have internships, and our internships office is more than happy to help people have practical experience in China. There are organizations, for instance, in Beijing and Shanghai and elsewhere in China, which are able to host students from our institute. And we do run a large number of events. We've had events, for instance, with our partners, China Dialogue on the Environment with China, with Chatham House, the Royal Institute of Asian Affairs in St. James's Square in London. And we've had very, very successful events, for instance, with the Young China Watchers on careers in China, on doing business in China, on working with China, and also finally with the Royal Society of Asian Affairs on the Belton Road, with the Woodrow Wilson's Institute in the United States, which was done a year ago, from which we published a special edition of their bulletin, Asian Affairs. So this is, I believe, a really, really important aspect of what we do. Our course is a very, very specialist one, but we do offer a global and comparative perspective, and you will be within the School of Global Affairs, so you'll be able to work with people who deal with India, Latin America, and also other geographies, but also people who deal with more theoretical issues about global affairs. We have a very flexible curriculum, and we have different options on modules. We deal, for instance, with international relations, with Chinese governance, with Chinese political economy, and also with Chinese business. It is also possible for people to take modules within the wider School of Global Affairs. An attractive part of our degree is that you are able to do varied assessment methods, written and oral, group and individual. You will be part of a community. You're able to do dissertations to really test your ability to write in an extended way, but also you'll be able to answer particular questions for shorter essays and also have individual tuition. This is really, really important as it creates a sense of community and a strong bond between those who are teaching here and those who are here to learn. And that is one of the distinctive features. Every Chinese New Year, we have a large social event. We welcome our students every year with an induction week, and we are also able to offer options to learn Mandarin or other languages if relevant, and to work with other parts of the university. So this is, again, part of the benefits of being in a comprehensive university in the centre of London as one of the most dynamic institutes teaching about China in the world. Our curriculum is divided fairly simply. We have one completely mandatory module, China and the Age of Globalization, which is 20 credits. And then we have a dissertation on China and globalization on a particular set of issues that you can choose on an issue, as long as you can get someone who is able to supervise you. But our ability to supervise is very, very broad, not just in the institution, but across our school and also across our faculty. And in the recent past, we've had people doing dissertations, for instance, on the Belt and Road, on China's cybersecurity, on the role of the First Lady in China in its historic development, on issues like female representation in the Communist Party of China, but also on China's role in Africa or China's role in the European Union. You're also able to take 100 credits in total from a range of optional modules across the school, and this includes not only the ones that we run within our institute, but also others. So there is a great deal of flexibility. This means that you're able to really tailor what we offer to your particular needs, to your interests, and also what you feel you may need for your future career prospects. And this, therefore, is a highly vocational approach to education, and one that we think gives the best flexibility and range of options to those who are coming here to study. The option modules are very, very broad within the Institute. We have Chinese international relations since 1945. We have the economic policies and developments in contemporary China, but we also have a number of modules taught by our academic staff on governance in China, on Chinese contemporary politics and about the role of the Communist Party in its development in China, and particularly about Chinese society, global health, and the Chinese language and internships. These are all extremely important, and they give a wide amount of choice, but they're also optional modules from, for instance, the School of Global Affairs and the Global Institutes, so that we do have people who have an interest in Africa being able to do modules, for instance, on China and Africa. We do have people with an interest in China and Latin America doing modules at the Brazil Institute. All of these, therefore, offer a great deal of flexibility and choice. We've, in the last few years, also been running business modules with the school, the business faculty, the newly established business faculty. And we're also running an environment in China module. We're also interested in the future in looking at particular issues like that of mental health in China. So we are also experimenting all the time and innovating, rather than just having a settled curricula, which is very, very rarely revised and refreshed. We are making constant changes to adapt to the knowledge levels, to the interests of those coming here, but also to the changes that are happening in contemporary China itself. This, we believe, is very, very important. The dissertation is one of the most interesting areas, I've already said, and it means that you are able to write a 12,000 word dissertation under supervision from one of the people at the Institute, or if necessary from someone outside the Institute if there's a particular need for specialist knowledge. Dissertation means that you're really able to develop a sustained argument and to learn the basic training, the basic disciplines of how to write a sustained piece of work beyond perhaps anything that you've written before. It means that you have the capacity to write, for instance, on issues that interest you, drawing on either field research or drawing on document research, on actual ability to deal with different sorts of source material, and to really test a hypothesis and to learn the basic structures of sustained argument. This has, of course, been an important exercise in and of itself, for people to be able to really train the way they think and understand an issue. But it's also really, really been a great training for those who want to continue to do, for instance, PhDs, of which each year we have a number, because that means that you are in a good place really to understand your ability to deliver 100,000 words on a subject, not over 1 year, but over 3 or 4. And therefore, dissertation is an attractive way and a very practical way of learning the basic skills of being able to do a sustained intellectual disquisition on an issue that you're interested in and you want to write something compelling about. In the past, we've also had prizes for the best dissertation, and we've also been able to have some of the dissertations actually revised and written up for publication, which means that there's really a kind of impact of the work that you do here, which is potentially way beyond just being part of your degree. It really can have a public impact, and that's what we really, really want to encourage those who come here to work towards. If you have any questions, the people working here will be very happy to answer them. My name is Professor Kerry Brown, and I and mostly working on contemporary Chinese politics and international relations. Dr. Charlotte Goodburn is the Deputy Director, works on Chinese society and comparative India-China research, and does a lot of work on migration issues within India and within China. Really important comparative work, which is really not done much elsewhere. Benjamin Barrett, as I've said before, works on the Chinese environment. He's an air quality scientist, but really understands and undertakes projects on not just the scientific impact, but the social and economic impact of environmental issues in China. Jan Norwich works on the Chinese political economy and does investments, particularly the important issue of Chinese investments and the patterns and drivers of those investments into the European Union. Constance Simonis works on contemporary Chinese politics and society and is doing an important new project on the Belt and Road, particularly in Eastern Europe. Dr. Sun Xin is working on domestic Chinese governance and Chinese business. He works on issues of land rights in China and the changing patterns of that, but also on the changes of delivery of governance at the rural and most basic level in China. And he is successfully publishing a great deal on these important issues. And finally, Dr. Igor Regelia works on Chinese domestic governance, but also works on the issue of the Belt and Road in Eastern Europe. This is a very, very powerful team, really doing diverse work, multidisciplinary work, and world-class work on aspects of contemporary China. And they're all here at the Lau China Institute. We really hope that you would consider coming to this dynamic, growing, and fast-developing institute dealing with a dynamic, growing, and fast-developing subject. We hope to welcome you to London very soon.